Oh, that's me. Hello, everyone. Um, my name is Thomas. I'm French. I live in the UK. I run a company called ICO Partners. I do lots of different things. I'm a consultant in the game industry. I help people with all sorts of issues they have, mostly on the publishing side. And I really like crowdfunding. I started really looking at that just on a personal level. That's something that I like. Oh, I didn't update the image. It's 200 something on Kickstarter now and games backed. And also like data. So when crowdfunding started to become like something of interest in the game industry, I started to pull data manually. Then with a friend, we put together a script to pull the data automatically from Kickstarter, and going from the data to actually learnings on how the different platform works. I started to get involved into different projects. I started to advise a number of projects. There's the 3 campaigns I directly work on and engineer and make sure that they were as well designed as possible for them to succeed. And then there's like about 30 odd campaigns that I got involved more like, arm lengths, giving feedback, advising the different campaigns, how to, also maximize the opportunities. And lastly, I've run workshops where I spend a whole day with a bunch of people, usually from the game industry, sometimes with the movie industry, and I destroy their dreams about what they think is crowdfunding. But these sessions are short, so this is not going to be a dream destroyer. This is going to be more like positive. But crowdfunding is an exercise that's requires a lot of work, resources. It's not free money, but when done right, it's a really, really good opportunity. So first, I always like to do like a sharing the numbers, because it's always difficult for from the outside to understand how big crowdfunding is or how small it's become, depending on how you want to look at it. So I always run those numbers every 6 months. I pull the data from Kickstarter. I run a few formula to extract some data, and that's what it looks like. So that's the one I did for the first 6 months of 2017. So of course, because it's a half year, 2017 looks very small, but it's kind of like on track to be along the 2016, which wasn't the best year for crowdfunding for video games. These are all Kickstarter numbers. You can add other platforms into it. Fig coming into play in 2016. Video games are a bit higher, but basically we are looking at like $20 million a year poured into video games from crowdfunding. But what I find usually more interesting is like how many projects are funded. And if you look at just the raw number of projects funded, the variation is actually a lot smaller. That big variation you can see here is because sometimes there's a project that comes in and say, hey, I'm going to do like $5 million just with that one project. That skews the number massively. Whereas here, it's everyone. It's the small project, it's the big projects. Everybody's kind of like aligned there. And what I like even more is looking at the tier, how much money, how many successful projects you have in different tiers depending on how much they raised. And if you look at the first half of 2017, kind of like on track, maybe behind the curve in terms of the very small project, what I call the less than $10,000 project. If you look at 10 to 50K, it's kind of like also kind of like same roughly numbers as previous years, as almost exactly. Then you look at the 50 to 100K. That's a category that's shrunk considerably. There's like probably going to be less project of that size funded on Kickstarter in 2017. But there are more projects in the 100K and more than usual. Like 19 projects for the first half. We probably have like 40 to 45 projects. The second half of the year is usually better than the first half of the year. So there's always that kind of bias. And there's very few projects that did more than 500,000 or more on Kickstarter in 2017. So that's a category that I actually not incredibly interested in, because there's very few people who have the project that's right to do 500,000 or more. There's tons of projects that are really, really good fit to raise under this kind of like budgets. So that's kind of like state of the place. It's not free money. It's not like growing crazy. If you go to my website and my blog, I will usually also do like graphs like that for board games Board games are amazing. It's exploding on Kickstarter. It's making 5 times more money or something like that. But I'm here to talk about video games. And the thing is that, it's kind of like, it's there. It's a certain amount of money that, people manage to get out of their community to fund their projects. It's still working. It's still a thing. It's not the crazy heydays like 2012, 2013, where everybody was doing a Kickstarter, was getting like front page news on the websites, where people were getting really excited. There's a bit more caution. The minimum bar you need to hit in terms of quality of what you show has increased a lot. It's more difficult, but it is still a very, very valid source of funding for video games. So now we go to the other side of the discussion, the thing that I think is more interesting, which is, what makes games successful on Kickstarter. And so I'll start with the basics, the things that hold true like 99.99% of the time for successful projects. The number one rule is, it's not how many people kind of like your game, it's about how many people love your game. This is about people who are incredibly engaged, want the thing that you're presenting to them happen regardless. It's about extreme passion, extreme dedication, and extreme interest. Also means that when you launch your campaign, you're more likely to succeed if you have people who already know about your game, already passionate about it, already love it. It's even more true because you have to consider a formula that's really, really fascinating from its psychological side, which is projects that reach 20% of their goal in the first 2 days succeed like 95% of the time. There's like a momentum that happens. That goes with also the very, very scary thing, which is you make a lot of money in the very first few days because people are excited to talk about it, it's new. And then you have a long period of time during a campaign where there's only like a trickle of money, a trickle of funding, a few backers coming in, proportionate to your total that are coming. I know like people look at this 20% on like 2 days, it's like, oh, but that means like in 15, like I multiply that by 15, and we're going to do 3 times the amount of money we ask by the end of the campaign. No, because after the first 2 days, it's going to slow down. But that 20% is good enough to show to other people discovering the project or coming late into the party to check your page that the project has momentum. If it has momentum, then I'm going to support it. And it's very frustrating when you are a creator, you put your project on a platform and you put your art into it, and like people say, oh, it's cool, but I think it's going to fail, so I'm not going to promise any money. When the platform itself says, if you put the money but it doesn't succeed, I don't take the money. But people are very precious about their time, about the extra 2 clicks for them to pledge some money to your project. So you need to show momentum. You need to have those first 2 days to be as successful as possible to be able to make it work. And going back into the point 1, you need people who love the game who are going to back it in the first 2 days. So it's very, very important to have people who are ready in the starting block when you launch a campaign to say, I love it, I want to back it. Nowadays, it's incredibly difficult to put together a project and not show what the game is like. At least, at the very least, like a footage of the game running and showing the gameplay. And more we see like games that have demos that people were able to play, being able to succeed because people kind of like, oh, this is what the game is going to be. Oh, okay, I'm going to back it. John Romero is here today. He can tell you that better than anyone. He has a big name in the game industry. He did a Kickstarter campaign where he was not showing the game. There was just an explanation, like a theoretical presentation of the project. It didn't get funded. And then there's like, there's kind of like, part 4. There's like part 4, A, B, and C. There's like 3 types of games that really, really, really struggle to get funded for lots of different reasons. I'm not going to go into details about them. I'm just going to list them. It's free-to-play games, really hard to get crowdfunding free-to-play games. Mobile game, really difficult to get a mobile game funded, and you probably don't want to get funded because the work behind to distribute the game back to your backers through the mobile platform is a nightmare. And a lot of people don't actually put the thought before they do the campaign on these projects on how I'm going to get like, that game on my backers that, want it on the iOS devices. Well, you actually need to buy the keys from Apple to do that. And it's an unpleasant process. And last is the project for kids. It's difficult to reach the kids, and you need to actually reach two audiences. You need to reach the kids and the parents. And the parents will not give a project money for something that's going to happen in like a year, maybe, when the kid has changed the taste and moved on to something else totally different. So a project for kids have really hard time getting funding. Then on my principles, there's also that principle on stretch goals, which is the something I'm really, really adamant about. Again, it's true like 99% of the time. People get very excited about the idea of stretch goals. You reach explaining to their backers what they're going to develop in top of the game after they reach the initial goal. And so there's like very two simple rules for that. The rule number one is you don't announce them. Don't announce your stretch goal. The rule number two is you do not announce your stretch goals. It's really a bad idea. You sabotage your communication. You move that 20%. People don't see anymore that your initial goal. They look at the stretch goal like looks cool, and mentally the psychological effect of the momentum is kind of like dampened by announcing your stretch goals. So the toolkit. What kind of things you need to you can use to make your project successful? So the thing you need first, and the most important thing you need, is a community. The more good you are at building a community, maintaining it, getting them excited, the more likely you are going to succeed. Those loves rather than likes. They'll also kind of like create certain profile of games that are more easy to get funded on Kickstarter. So if you have a game that's in a genre where there's like lots of offering, you are sharing that community with lots of people. If you were trying to do like a PlayerUnknown Battleground kind of game, and you go put it on Kickstarter, they will not care because they can play that kind of game already. They can play, Fortnite Battleground. They can play Battleground PlayerUnknown on Steam. They are satisfied. So you need to. There's also that component where maybe you need to have something that's unique that only you can give to that community. The other thing is the campaigns are good for a lot of side effects, not just the money. You get more visibility. People talk about your project. People share about it. What they are bad at, they are not good to do that from scratch. They are multiplier. The more people you have already kind of like pre-seeded, excited about your game, the more explosive your campaign can be. There's not a lot of discoverability on Kickstarter. How many people have backed a game on Kickstarter in the room? How many people have found that game on Kickstarter because they were looking for a game? Okay, we are the minority. I do that from time to time, but it's like crazy. It's like very few people do that. You bring people to Kickstarter. Kickstarter doesn't bring game to you. They can give you like legitimacy. They can help you put the little games we love sticker. They can put you in the newsletter. That helps, but most of the people, they come because you bring them on the platform. The thing also that I see way too often is people tend to think that announcing the campaign and announcing the game at the same time is a good idea. I so often recommend to people to at least wait 2 or 3 months after they announce the game, and they can announce they're going to do a crowdfunding campaign. That's fine. They can be very transparent about that. But don't do it at the same time. You will not be able to crystallize enough passion, enough fans with just that thing, unless there's always exceptions, but as a rule, this is such a much safer route that allows you to basically get people excited. They get them to get their friends excited, then bring them into the project. The point on niche and rather than the whole world, that's kind of like what I was saying in the beginning when we were ranting about don't do PlayerUnknown Battleground. I will say it. And try to do something that has a unique identity. It's so much easier to communicate to a very dedicated niche than to anyone. If your game is like, it's so awesome, anyone will like it, then you don't know who to target. You don't know where to spend money in marketing. You don't know which outlets to outreach to cover your game. It's so much better to have like maybe a smaller niche, something that's a bit like nerdy and crazy and artsy or whatever, because then finding the people who are into this kind of things is so much easier. Your efforts are much more cost efficient. Even if you don't spend money, just looking for where the people are, engaging with them is much easier. And the last thing is that formula, that 20% in 48 hours, is actually a really, really good way to look at, is your project ready for a campaign? If you need, I don't know, if you say $20 per backer on average, you want to do a $100,000 campaign, so you need 1,000 backer the first 2 days. How many people do you have on Facebook? If you have like 500 people, you are way off. It's not like you need 1,000 people. It's you need like 1,000 people engaged with the game that are going to like it. So you can look at already like a few metrics, like how many people do you have on your newsletter? How many people do you have on Twitter? How many people, the people that follow you on Twitter, engage with the game, like the tweets or retweet it or comment it, and try to gauge, okay, I have a very engaged community that's really dedicated, and there's like a rough number that seems to be getting close to that 20%. Yes, I have something that can work. If you have like lots of people but no engagement, then you know also that there's something is wrong. Maybe the audience you have is just kind of like, they just like it. You want people who love it. I have two really unfair examples to share over here. So how many people have heard of this game called Homestuck? Okay, Homestuck is a Kickstarter, a game that got funded on Kickstarter in 2012, I think. And they raised $2 million. It's a pointer. It's here. $2.4 million. It's based on a webcomic that has a very strong audience in America through teenage into the goth emo subculture. But they are massively, massively engaged with the franchise. And the creator is one guy doing that webcomic. He's a former game developer, and he went to say, I'd like to do a video game of that universe. There's lots of video game reference in the webcomic. He got $2.4 million from their backers. And I would like to attract your attention on another thing, which is how many backers he got. He got 24,000 backers. On average, his backers gave him $100. And these are mostly teenage American kids. Then there's this one. You probably never heard of it unless you're French. This is a web series. Is this recorded? Can I say bad stuff? Oh, no, I won't say bad stuff. It's a very good webcomic, web series. The acting is amazing. They are very nice. It's not my cup of tea, but it has massive audience. They made comic books. They did a crowdfunding campaign. It's not Kickstarter. I'm sorry, Michael. They did a crowdfunding campaign to do movies. They got like 600,000 euros to do that. It's the record-breaking campaign on Ulule. And they decided to do a video game. They've never made a video game in their life. They don't know how to make video game. They know that they're going to use RPG Maker because someone told them it's easy to make a game with RPG Maker. And you can see the campaign's running right now. They're probably, a few thousand euros above that screenshot. They have €500,000 already. And I'd like to attract your attention on another number, which is 40 days left. That's the beginning of the campaign. They still have a lot of runway. They have a massively dedicated audience. They have fans of their franchise, people who love their game, their web series. But they basically implicitly trusted, and people who love that, they want to see more content, and they will give money to get more content. Again, these are two very unfair examples because there is a lot of money. This is difficult. We go into the realm of very, very difficult amount of money to raise, but the principles are the same. So a few things that, always to keep in mind. There's some of them are really, common marketing tactics and approach to communication. But crowdfunding campaign is very, very, very much a marketing exercise, a communication exercise. It's about how well can you present your game, how good are you to explain what is awesome into it, and can you convince people to actually support it financially. So whenever you communicate about your game, always have a call to action. Don't put a screenshot of the game on Twitter without a little ask for them to follow you, or like a link to the website, or a newsletter registration. Don't do that. Don't waste your communication effort by not asking people to do something afterward. Always create a way to capitalize on your effort. So in the same way that you need to call for these actions, you need to make sure that whenever you do something, it's like, how is it going to benefit me? How can I make use of these things I'm doing for whenever I'm launching my campaign or after the campaign? How am I going to communicate with people? These are tools that are like a newsletter is such a very basic tool, but it's so efficient. You go to communicate directly to the people that show an interest into your project. It's very important to always think about that effort I'm doing. How am I getting something back from it? I give a very good example. If you go to like a trade show, what it is you tell people that allow you to make use of the fact that you were at the trade show later on? Do you get them to register to newsletter after they shot the game? Do you give them like a little business card where there's a code where they can register somewhere? What is the thing that you show at the event that makes it worthwhile 6 months, 2 years, 5 years later on? They engage early, build momentum is really important. So there's a rhythm to have with the campaign where that's okay. Get back later. So there's a certain rhythm to create with your campaign. So if you do early, but you need to also regularly communicate and show stuff that understand what people want to see, and try to always challenge how you talk about your game. What are you going to show to them? I'm very big on the importance of being transparent, because there's nothing that can blow up in your face than a community that hates you after they loved you. So really be careful about. You can talk about money with prospective backers, people who are going to support you. You can explain what is the process. You just need to be very honest, very careful how you phrase things, but it's paying off. One thing that you can do with specifically on Kickstarter, which is really efficient, is as you build your campaign and you do the rewards and how you present the project, thing like that, you can share that with people before it goes live. It is such a powerful way to get your community engaged by showing them this is like this. What do you think? And they will say oh, this reward sucks and this is too expensive, and they will be critical, but they will be also giving very insightful feedback and says well, I wanted to give you $100, but there's nothing at $100. Can you find out something that can like a way for me to give you more money? Or they will spot things that you missed out on, what is exciting about the game, and all that kind of stuff. On top of that, on a platform like Kickstarter, they also can follow the campaign before it's even live, and they get an email the moment you live, and they'll be able to back you the instant it's going out. Always give the community tools to talk about you. So there's a tool I kind of like called Thunderclap It. It's crowdsourcing your social message. So basically you create a social message, you say, hey, my campaign is out. And you ask people before that message goes out to commit to share it. And so they use their Twitter account, their Facebook account, where they say, I'm going to support it, I'm going to back it, I'm going to reshare it. And the tool does that for them at the time you specify. So you launch your campaign, and all those people you've talked to who supported you through Thunderclap It, they all send a tweet at the same time where it says hey, that thing is awesome, I want to support it, check it out, it's live now. It's a good tool. I've seen campaigns giving away avatars of from the game, with usually also the URL or the name of the campaign, a little Kickstarter logo to tell people to check it out. And they use them in the forums when they talk about their favorite video games, things like that. All these little banners where they can promote it. They go to their own space, their own social media, where they can use these little tools that you've given them to actually do your promotion. And last but not least, GIFs are amazing. This is the best way to communicate about games at the moment. I'll talk more about that, I think, in a minute. So just on campaign pages, I've done lots of reviews of lots of campaign pages. I spend a lot of time on Kickstarter. The very first thing you need to keep in mind, you need to be very visual. People don't read huge block of text. It's very tempting to describe things by text because it's easy. I don't need to bring an artist or anything, and I know what I have in my mind, so I just type it out. Walls of text is the bane of campaigns. Try to explain things with little diagrams and things like that. It's so much better, so much more efficient. It's also easier for people to then replicate that and share that, rather than say, wow, you should read that wall of text because that's awesome concept they are doing. So it's more like, hey, here's a diagram that explains that concept to you. I was mentioning GIF. GIFs are more important than your video for your campaign. GIFs are now the #1 marketing tool. Like Callum was saying that, if you want to pitch a game to a publisher, you need to send a little GIF inside that. Yes, that's also true for PR. If you want to talk about your game to a media, you should send an email with a little GIF into it. And if you want to have people to talk about your game on social media, on Twitter, on Facebook, you have a GIF. GIFs are really, really, really important. And that's true also for campaign pages where people, right before they click and load the video, they probably scroll through your page to see what the game looks like. And if you have a good GIF that shows it's fun and cool, it's more likely then to go into the video. Just don't do shitty video, of course, but it's just secondary. You can give tons of details about your game. Just make sure you give them in the right order. Always explain the core concept first, and then the fluff around, and then the extra fluff around. And as someone gets into the campaign and is interested, they will decide when they have enough information about your game, and then they will stop. So you make sure that your first information first. It's true for the video, it's true for the text, it's true for the campaign. It's very important to organize that properly. I've seen a couple of campaigns of really interesting concept, but they would not explain some of the core gameplay loop. And the first question people would ask is what is the combat system? Is it turn-based or not? And it was not clear in the project, and that was a problem for them. Give a couple of examples. This is Kingmaker, the Pathfinder video game that I worked on earlier in June. The little diagram here was replacing a big wall of text. It explains all the different interactions between some gameplay loops, and it was a good, efficient way to explain what was different in the RPG, because they have an RPG where you control a kingdom. This little diagram here is good, this is the content. It's 100 monsters and 10 classes and 7 races. It's much more clear visually like that. 2 other campaigns I worked on. This is Dual Universe. They had a whole, this was a wall of text where they have those 2 things where one side is an EVE Online, player economy driven territory system game, and the other side is like Minecraft. But they was very complicated and really pushed for them to do something a bit more visual. And this is for Triumph, where it's like XCOM fantasy with real physics. And so that was the way to explain why physics was fun in that kind of game. I don't have any more time, so we'll go through that not. I'll try to find some things, important stuff. The last thing, in the campaign, this bit here, the little blurb is super important. That is all the time, so make it right. Project we love. That's not too difficult to get. You just talk to the guys from Kickstarter. If your product is cool enough, they just put it. But talk to them before you launch your campaign rather than after. Talk to Michael. There's data. You can track things. You can do Google Analytics. That's quite efficient. You can do paid marketing, performance marketing. That's all will work. Explore these things because not everybody do that. A lot of people don't at all. And that's it. See, I was not too over time. Sorry about that. Do we have time for question 1? No problem for a question or 2. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for the talk. And my question regards these bars with the under 10,000 funding, because that's a lot of that. And what's your opinion? What's the point of those fundings with the so small amount of money? And if this is related to publicity, what are the consequences when even such a small amount of money is not funded? Isn't it get some kind of a stigma on this game when you try it to pitch later to the, for example, investors that your game didn't even raise so small amount of money?
So the project that raised like less than 10,000 usually are they usually are like students, hobbyist project. This is like, I need music. I can't do music, so I need someone to do music for me. This sort of project. You have some projects who do that because they want to get a bit more funding. They want to have some money to do a bit more marketing, and so they need a huge amount. That's what usually happens. There's a talk I sometimes do about why would you do crowdfunding? What are the reasons where you would do it but not related to money? There's one of the main reasons to do it is I think it's better to fail at your crowdfunding campaign than when you launch your game. If you fail, it means that you don't know where to find your audience. You don't know how to communicate about the game. It could be lots of reasons. It could be the game, or it could be how you talk about it. And it's much better to know that early on than later on. And on the last thing on investment, on small amounts like that, I think most people will not care. But I think most of people in the investment community also realize that if you fail, it's not necessarily the game is bad. Maybe you are bad at marketing the game or something like that. A good example is so Callum again was the game that talked just before. Kingdom was kickstarted, and I think it didn't work very well. The crowdfunding campaign was, I think it's like in the 10K, and it failed. But it got spotted by the Raw Fury guys, and they say like, oh, it's not really good at marketing, but we can do a good job with them. And they managed to find a collaboration. I have lots of stories of publishers who saved projects who failed at Kickstarter, but still managed to get published because they still like the game, they still find something there.
Very good.
Yeah. Yes. Let's not be a question about stretch goal, because I know we had a discussion about that in the past.
Okay, that would have been my just a question, because you said don't announce the stretch goals. What do you think is the best time when to unveil your stretch goal?
Okay, so I think you unveil your stretch goal. The best time is after you reach your goal. That's ideal, but you can't always do that. Sometimes you need to create another wave of momentum, and that's why announcing stretch goal is actually a good card to keep in your pocket. So like you can recreate another wave of momentum. It's like, oh, it's coming to Xbox. Oh, suddenly people talk about it, and then maybe that's what things go through the goal you want to reach. So usually I'd say like you need to be maybe like in the 70-80% of your goal. Then you can start announcing stretch goals. I mean, it's that kind of ratio. If you are like at half of what you need to reach and you announce stretch goal, the psychological effect will be like, hey, but we'll never reach them. We are not even sure they're going to get funded. So it's a difficult exercise. I understand it's very frustrating that you want to do more. And sometimes you have the project that you will do a lot more. So why not did day one? But I think it's a good, it's a good idea to always try and wait until like people will see your project. They will intuitively say, oh, they're going to meet their goal. That's the moment where you say, this is my stretch goals, and probably don't announce all of them. Just like 2 by 2 is kind of good guidelines, I think. Yeah. No more questions, I was told, but I'm still here. You can ask me a question afterward. Thank you very much for having me.